Okay, welcome back to part 2, where we're going to get a little bit more advanced and make our code a little bit more efficient. And the first thing I'm going to do is just take this yes/no subroutine, push it down, put it in there. Now this is what I'm going to focus on, create window, and I'm going to build something called a class. Now if you were listening during our lessons, you would know that this is now a class is associated with the object-oriented paradigm. So let me just type in the first bit before I go into the detail. Okay, I'm going to create a class called extra. All right, this class will be the build or the template for my extra windows, and I've assigned it. It's got a parameter called TK top level. And that's so that we can make sure that this window is going to float above the actual root window itself. Now all classes, if you remember, have a constructor. And Python uses the init constructor. So the constructor is a special method, and it's used to initialize an object's attributes or its variables if you're used to procedural programming. And when an instance of a class is created or a version of the class is created, then that thing in brackets called self is a reference to the instance of the class. Now that might be a lot to take in for a second, okay? I'll just say it again. The self parameter is a reference to the instance of the class. So anytime I want to communicate with the class that I'm in, I'll use the word self to do it. And that means I'm basically referring to itself. All right? So you'll see this in practice because it might be a little bit confusing. You could technically choose any name, but it's good convention to use the word self. All right? Now inside the init, the constructor, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the word super. Now you're going to have to picture this in your brain for a second because it's going to be hard otherwise. So you're going to have to picture it. If you want to, you can close your eyes, figure this out, try and figure it out. So I've got super init. Now what that means is super will call the constructor init of the parent class using the super function. Now that's typically used in a subclass to in what we call invoke or build the constructor of the parent class first, and that ensures that we initialize the code of the parent class before initializing the code of the subclass or the object that I've created from it. Okay, so think about it like this. Yeah, you were born from your parents. If I use super, your parents get made first before I get made as a child, or you get made as a child, should I say. All right, and that's what we're doing. We're making sure that the parents' properties are built first before we create our own properties. And that's what super's doing. Now, that was a lot to swallow, wasn't it? My goodness, jeez. Okay, so I'm going to create something called nameVar. Now nameVar is just a variable, and it's going to have tk.stringVar, bracket. Now I'm going to have an entry box, and the entry box, the information from the entry box is going to go inside nameVar. And I'll just use tk.stringVar to basically say you're going to receive some information, some text from the box, from the entry box. And then all I need to do is think about what I did before. So if I look at create window, let's start taking some stuff out of this in order to build create window. So I'm going to take all of this here, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to put it in here. Now I need to indent it and touch more because it needs to go inside the super. All right, so what have I done? Now I need to make a few changes because, as I said to you before, every time we refer, instead of referring to it as extra window now, what we will do is we'll refer to it as self. So this extra window equals tk top level has already been done inside the parameter, so that can disappear. This extra window now gets changed to self because we've already created the extra window and we're inside it, so self title extra window. Geometry, we don't say extra window anymore, we just say self. And these TK labels, again, instead of saying extra window, we're just going to refer to self. Extra window is going to refer to self. And that's it. Now that will do something similar to what we've seen before, but we're going to make it a little bit more, I don't know, functional. So let's have our entry box in here. Now, where do you want to place the entry box? I want to put it in self. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to associate the text of this and associate it with a text variable called name var that I've already built before on line 11. After that, obviously, you're going to have to pack it in somewhere. And the button now needs to be a little bit more advanced. I want to show the text from an entry box when I click a button. Sounds quite straightforward, doesn't it? Now, if we run this code, you'll see, when I run this, you'll notice that when I click open main window, nothing happens, people, nothing happens. Now, why does nothing happen? Well, if you look at create window, it just creates a global pointer to extra window, but it doesn't actually do anything because I've not called the class to instantiate or create the class. So let's create the class. Extra underscore window equals, and then you call the class. So it's called extra bracket bracket. All right, simple as that. Now, if you wanted 1,000 extra windows without writing any of that code again, it's perfect because you can just say extra window 2 equals extra bracket bracket. Now, obviously, you'd put a capital letter. Now, it's common convention to have capital letters at the start for classes, and you can see it's turned a different color. Now, that means you'll have 2 identical extra windows, but I've only created one set of code, and that's the beauty of object-oriented programming. So there we are, people. Get rid of that. So I just want one extra window at this point. So that's it now. I'll run this again for my lovely viewers. And here we are. Open a main window. And yeah, look, it opens up. Wonderful. Doesn't do anything yet. Look. Doesn't do anything. So let's get some functionality working. This entry box here will take the information. Now the button is something I wanted to show you that can be quite confusing when you see it for the first time. Before, I used a command, didn't I? Lower down, create window. Now, if you want to create an inline function, then you need to use this word here, lambda. Okay, lambda. Now, lambda has a colon, and then it says when you click the command button, what do you want to do? All right, now the lambda function gets created and it sets the command for the button. So when the button's clicked, our lambda function is going to be executed, right? And it will produce a message box of some kind. So message box dot show info, and we're going to produce a message. So we're going to say, let's just say message as our title, and then we're going to have our variable name var, and if we want to extract the information from the box, we're going to have to say dot get and then bracket bracket. Okay. Now bear in mind, now the lambda is going to use message box.showInfo to display the information in the box once we've clicked the button. All right. Now the lambda function is quite a nice, concise way of doing things. I said before it was an inline function for the buttons command, and it fetches the name var, doesn't it? The string from there and displays it. Let me just test this out and make sure it works. Lambda's very useful as well if you don't want to run the procedure on load as well, which I know some people have ran into before. I click open my window there, and I'll put in here John, click me, and it says John. Excellent. All right. And that's all I wanted it to do, really. So, what have we done? We have created a global pointer. We have instantiated extra window, which becomes an object of the extra class. The extra here is the parent class, and in it is the constructor. So when this class gets invoked or created, then it's going to run all of this code, super, making sure that any parent objects get implemented first, followed by name var, which is just a variable to hold the information from my entry box. I've got a title, geometry, label, entry, and a button. The button has a command in there, which is a lambda command, which means I don't have to call another function, and my code is therefore packaged up quite nicely. Okay, and that is the end of this little mini tutorial on advanced Tkinter.